Dylan's kids, meanwhile, watch an episode of Danger Mouse. This is a British animated series that ran from 1981 to 1992. Danger Mouse! We see the mole character, Professor Heinrich von Squawkencluck. He's a character known for experimenting on animals, and in this clip, he points to an X-ray showing a tiny device inside the patient's brain. This is such an odd, deep cut, but it's perfect as a reference because it parallels Lumen putting chips in the brains of the severed workers, and this whole idea of animal and mammal experimentation. In the background of the scene, you can see the Lumen gift basket that Milchick brought with a pineapple still on the table. Gretchen, it seems, works the night shift in some uniformed position, maybe a security guard or a toll booth operator, maybe a cop in Lumen's privatized police force. Either way, the fact that she works the graveyard shift presents just like another example of difficulties with work-life balance. The creepiest detail of the scene, that is a Keir Egan plush doll on the floor. Devin finds Rickon meeting with Natalie Kalin, who expresses interest in his book. Natalie reads this quote, "But surely beer and juleps cannot fill the void left by love." And if you look further down the page, you can see the challenges facing the poor that Rickon listed, including hunger, gout, shoelessness, loan sharks, rainstorms, and other stuff. Not that he's wrong, but it just feels like kind of a random list off the top of his head. And I feel like Rickon is writing some commentary on alcoholism, which, remember, Audi Mark suffers from, as did Mark and Devin's father, who is an undiagnosed alcoholic.
If I'm sorry, Mark and my dad used to have whiskey as life carved on a flask.
And maybe a habit that Devin just might be a little too okay with. And I'm only basing this on her eagerness for wine right after she finished pumping.
I pumped, so it's Miller time.
In the season 1 finale. Hey, no shame. I know it's hard for new moms to find these windows to unwind, but there is just a family history here that we have to acknowledge. Overall, this passage in Rickon's book is nonsense, and it shows that Rickon knows as little about alcoholism as he does about what it really means to be poor. But we also have to remember that Lumen printed that fake newspaper for any Mark that included a passage about Rickon and Rickon's book, but also a new pro-Lumen book, suggesting that it is part of Lumen's plan to convert this anti-Lumen voice in Mark's Audi's life to flip him in favor of their company. And by expressing interest in his book, that seems to be part of that plan. Also, random detail behind Devin here, that is a goat head statue on their side table. Goats are everywhere in this episode, and it freaks me out. So Mark and Devin craft together this ultraviolet lamp with the words, "Who is alive?" written in pieces of felt, which we know from the get-go is no smarter of a plan than any Mark's missing posters. Not only are we going to learn these letters are not capable of burning on the retinas, it's just the simplest question to ask clarification on who any Mark was talking about when he said she's alive, something that any would have said several days in conversations before that, and a question that it would be impossible for him to deliver an answer for to the Audi. But Devin says the whole Mind Collective would be very proud, reminding us of that protest group that Audi Mark drunkenly argued with in season 1. Meanwhile, Milchick's computer screen reads Management Control Panel and 4 listings for personnel. The first one being 019-827-2938. Second one, 112954-1004. The third one being 748-918-2160. And the last one being 651-607-1002. Milchick clicks on the fourth one, and the second line now reads Execute Drawer System, and we see a few rows of active sources, and I'm guessing maybe the drawer system could be part of the surveillance on the MDR folks' current actions. But remember, Miss Huang, who I still think is Mark and Gemma's daughter, kept her Kier diving game in her desk drawer. It could be connected to that, or maybe drawers are where they just keep the corpses down on the lower level beneath the severed floor. Harmony confronts Helena in the parking lot outside Lumen. Harmony demands to be made MDR floor manager again to remove Milchick, and that they need her because Harmony achieved everything through dedication and industry, not because she was born into it. Obviously a dig at Helena, who was born into this family as a direct descendant of Kier. But also remember, Dan Erickson said that Harmony was part of Lumen since she was a girl, not since birth. So I'm wondering if her mom might have taken her when she was a young girl and fled whatever life she was in and joined Kier, and then something bad happened to Charlotte Cobell. Helena picks up her phone to call Natalie to summon the board, and Harmony initially follows her into the building, but then stops suddenly when she sees Helena's driver or bodyguard and then turns to leave. I'm reminded somewhat of that amazing scene in Goodfellas when Karen suddenly senses that she's about to be whacked and runs back to her car.
No. Hey, go ahead. It's right in there.
No, Jimmy,
right there.
I'm in a hurry. My mom's watching the
right
kids.
In the
I
store.
gotta get home. I'll come back later.
But what spooked Harmony here? Was this man involved in the death of Harmony's mother, Charlotte? Or did Charlotte perhaps come at odds with the company at some point and then got taken in a similar way? Or is it just a vibe that Harmony gets? Well, we cut back to Mark counting with his eyes closed, and he's cut off at 37, just as he was cut off on 37 when he transitioned to his innie in the elevator in the opening minutes.
37.
And And we get a jump scare from the returning Dr. Asal Regabi, the rogue Lumen employee who did Petey's reintegration procedure and the woman who killed Doug Grainer. Regabi confirms that Gemma is still alive, or at least she was the last time she saw her. Regabi offers to do a reintegration on Mark, and she claims that she's better at it now, saying she can sew together a version of Mark who loves Gemma with a version who can, and she's cut off when Mark just immediately agrees. So I wonder, how did Regabi get better at reintegration since Petey, who she obviously did a very bad job with? Who else did she practice reintegration on? Could her most recent patients have included Helena Egan? Regabi does, after all, still work at Lumen as a Severance surgeon. She's not a former employee, she's a current employee. Regabi explains that the monitor tracks the 5 brainwave frequencies of the innie and the outie: delta, theta, alpha, beta, gamma. So adults have all of these brainwaves in different parts of, or all parts of our brains. Delta brainwaves are 0.1 to 3.5 hertz. They occur in deep sleep, and they're the dominant rhythm in infants. We actually increase delta waves to decrease our awareness of the physical world. Theta brainwaves, 3.5 to 7.5 hertz for slow activity, seen in connection with creativity, daydreaming, and fantasizing, and is a repository for memories, emotions, and sensations. These are really strong during meditation and prayer. Alpha brainwaves range from 8 to 12 hertz. They bridge the conscious with the subconscious and are really the major rhythm for relaxed adults. Beta brainwaves are 13 to 30 hertz. Fast activity, really the dominant rhythm of those who are alert or anxious or just have our eyes open as we're taking in the world. This is a state that most of the brain is when we're like problem solving or making judgments or decision making. And then gamma brainwaves is everything over 30 hertz. That's when the brain needs to simultaneously process information from multiple areas. It's like where we're at when we're multitasking and bordering overloaded. We see Mark's hand shaking, which is apparently a bad thing because it suggests that Regabi's frequency rod is impacting part of Mark's brain that controls his motor function. Regabi asks her first question, who am I? Again, kind of that who are you opening line of the series coming back there. Then asks Mark's mother's name. We learn Fern Scout, and then her eye color, which Mark struggles to remember. That is nearly a recreation of the 5-question survey in the Lumen script when an innie is first awoken. Those questions are, who are you? Which state or territory were you born? Please name any state or territory that comes to mind. What is Mr. Egan's favorite breakfast? And then what is or was the color of your mother's eyes? Regabi asks him to name a dam, and he says Hoover. She asks what MDR stands for, and he begins to say Mystic, which of course is wrong, and that shows that innie Mark is still dormant in this moment. But next she asks Mark about something for which he feels shame, something innie Mark might be more synced with, as it's an emotion that he might have to tap into while he's batching numbers. And outie Mark responds that his dog died when he was a kid after he left the gate open. And I don't know, I feel like we might learn more about that. Like, you know, if he had an alcoholic father, was it really the son's fault that the gate was left open and the dog wasn't properly cared for? Increasingly, Mark doesn't know the answer to these long-term memory questions, and we see some intercutting frames flickering in to Mark with his same apparatus around his face, but if you pause it, you see that he's lying on the desk of the intake room at Lumen. But what really triggers the reintegration is Regabi asking what was his earliest memory, and while outie Mark can't remember that, and many of us can't really remember that, innie Mark, we know, does know his earliest memory because he told Haley R in season 1 that he remembered waking up on that same table and hearing the voice of the guy who would one day become his best friend. And Petey's voice returns, walking through those same scripted lines over the intercom that Mark actually struggled to follow to welcome Helly in the opening scene of the series. Mark flickers between his innie and his outie, and I love that they built a separate set with the same long curved table but set in Mark's basement. And Petey says he has 5 questions, and now we are wondering if those 5 questions are designed to test the 5 brainwave frequencies: delta, theta, alpha, beta, gamma. I love this episode, and I'm shocked that the series reintegrated Mark so early, but I can't wait to see where it goes next because I have no freaking clue. Comment down below with all of your thoughts and theories. Follow me at EA Voss and subscribe to all the channels in the New Rockstars Network for breakdowns and news coverage of everything you love. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.